So we'll discuss some Inyani Sfiras Omer. Since we're in the time period between Pesach and Shavuos, in fact, the Ramban calls this time period the Chol Shamoed. It's like we just finished Pesach. Looks like you're in a warm place. Chol Shamoed. So we know the intermediate days are of Pesach and Sukkot. The Ramban calls the whole days of Sfira between Pesach and Shavuos the intermediate days. In other words, as Chazal tell us, the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to accept the Torah at Har Sinai. And in fact, originally, now we have some Minhagi Avelis during this time. That's a separate shir. But really, Minat Torah, this is a happy time. It was a time of accepting, going ahead and looking forward to Kabbalas HaTorah. So one of the many questions that come up is the following. What happens if someone is going to miss a full day? Let's say you're having a surgery, and again, you never know for sure, but for our purposes, hypothetically, let's say on the 29th day, you're going to be under the knife, you'll be on anesthesia, you'll be out cold. Let's assume we do know that. Practically speaking, you never know, so it's not an issue. Or perhaps on a sadder note, let's say someone's palliative, and again, you never know, but it's unlikely you're going to make the whole sphere. So should you bother counting it all to begin with? Or this person, let's say he's having surgery on day 30, should he count to 29? Should he not count at all? And we can make up other hypotheticals, but that's the issue. If you know down the line you're going to miss a day, so should I bother counting, or just we'll wait for another lifetime, depending on the question, or another year? So to understand that, we have to go back first to understand the famous machlokes between the Bahag, the Baal Hilchos Gedolos, and the Bali Tosfos, which is the fundamental question in Sfira, is whether the counting of Sfira is 49 days or whether it's 1 day. Forget it. You could go on to Kosher Tube and have the whole shir on whether it's biblical or rabbinical this year, so I might as well just give another shir tonight. And if you come Thursday, I'll give a different shir Thursday night. But the question is what is this? What, in other words, it's all based on a Bahag. The Bahag, Tosfos quotes a Bahag that says that if you miss a full day, that's it. That if you miss a full day of counting, you no longer count. So in fact, the Bahag also, and there's a discussion. Let's just give the halach l'maisa, then we'll explain it. So we know the Shulchan Aruch brings down halach l'maisa is if you forget to count tonight, so the minhag is you count tomorrow without a bracha. That itself is a machlokas rishonim, whether you're even allowed to count during the day at all. Some opinions are the mitzvahs at night and not during the day, which, let's go back and say, why is the mitzvah at night? What we do during the day, shofar. Where do we know that Sfira is supposed to be at night? So actually, we all know the Bahag, how he learns Tamimus, we'll get to in a second, but just the basics is, because the Torah says Tamimus Tiena, so we know it has to be a complete day. So we learn out, Vayihi Vayiboker, the day begins at night. So in order to have a complete count, we begin at night. So much so that Tosfos even, maybe we'll get into, Tosfos even says to count Ben Hashmashas, to count after sunset and between sunset and Tzeitzach L'Chavim. And in fact, one opinion even says Samach L'Chashech, even says counting a little bit before sunset to make sure. And we also know Tamimus on the other end. That's why we don't make shuas early, because we want to. So that's what the real meaning of Tamimus. That's how we learn it has to be at night. So it's a given. It's at night. It's a machlokas rishonim whether you're allowed to count it all during the day. So our meaning is you count during the day without a bracha. And Pashas, it seems to be a compromise. That it's a machlokas what to do, so we count without a bracha. That's a simple understanding. And if we miss a complete day, so the halacha is we no longer count with the bracha anymore. So
you count without a bracha?
Yeah. So halacha we see you count without a bracha. So the question is, what's this all about? So people want to say, why is this true? Twofold. Number one is, why, if I do count during the day, why don't I make a bracha? So again, there seems to be a suffix brachas lahakal. Since it's a machlokas rishonim, so we count without a bracha. Similarly here, the halakha is if you miss a complete day, you don't count. So the question is, why not? So the Bahag doesn't say this. He just says that if you miss a complete day, you no longer count. People will say, so must be the Bahag. You know why the Bahag says this? He must hold Sfiras Omer is one big mitzvah. One big mitzvah with 49 parts. And therefore, what's the difference if I do 1 out of 49, 3 out of 49, 48 out of 49? If I don't do all of it, so then, if I don't do all of it, so then it doesn't make a difference. So that's how we get the basis. What people say, Bahag doesn't say it himself. It's implied. If he says if you forget a complete day, you have to go back and you can't count anymore. We'll see count anymore with the bracha or without, but you certainly can't make a bracha anymore. So people assume the Bahag is saying that it's one big mitzvah, and that's so it's a suffix whether you can count during the day, so we count without a bracha. And simple pshat halach, it's a machlokas Bahag and everyone else. So we're strict for the Bahag, and we continue counting without a bracha if you miss a complete day. Again, if you miss a day, we assume if you count during the day, that following night you can count with the bracha. So that's a simple explanation of the halacha. However, so Rav Soloveitchik says that's not the pshat in the Bahag. Everybody agrees, even the Bahag agrees, that it's 49 separate mitzvahs. There are no opinions that says it's one big mitzvah. The Bahag also agrees, like everyone else, like all the other Rishonim, it's 49 separate mitzvahs. If that's the case, then, if it's 49 separate mitzvahs, then why can't I continue counting with the bracha? What's the difference if I missed the first 48 days? If it's a separate mitzvah, there's nothing to talk about. So that's what the Rav explains, that by definition, what is a sfira? Sfira means to count. By definition, it has to be ritzif, it has to be continuous. In other words, what's the count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Especially we have an accounting season. You can't just, well, I'll kind of make up a number of the revenue account, not that people don't. But 1, 3, I'll throw it up. That's not a count. You have to actually count in order. So the Bahag also agrees that every day is a separate mitzvah. Alright, so what's the big deal? Because once I miss the count, let's say I counted to day 8, and I missed day 9, the reason why I can't count day 10 with the bracha isn't because it's one mitzvah, but it's not considered a sfira anymore. I messed up the count according to the Bahag. There's no point in counting anymore. That's how the Rav went. Most people, the simple reading or simple understanding of the Bahag is that it's one big mitzvah, and if it's one big mitzvah, so once you miss any one day, it's over. There's no point in counting. But the Rav is saying no. It's 49 separate mitzvahs. But nevertheless, you can't continue counting because once you miss the count, it's no longer considered a sphere. So my nafkamina, what's the practical difference how I understand the Bahag? The bottom line is, if you miss a complete day, we're saying the Shulchan Aruch brings down, whether we pass them like that, we'll get to in a minute, but the simple reading of the Shulchan Aruch is, and the poskim, if you miss a complete day, you can no longer continue counting with the bracha. There's no harm in counting. It might be worthless, but what's the difference? There's no issur of counting, so we count anyway. We can't lose. So what's the difference if I say the reason why I can no longer count anymore or can't count with the bracha is because it's one big mitzvah and that's it? Or it's 49 separate mitzvahs, but it's no longer a sfira. Either way, I can't count anymore with the bracha. So the difference would be is our case. Let's say someone knows they're going to miss day 38, day 43, day 18, whatever day they're going to miss. Should I count 1 through 17? I know in advance, however the hypothetical we want to make up, I'm going to miss a complete day. It could be you passed the international date line, you came back, you left, your last count was 38, you got back, it was 40, whatever hypothetical you want to make up, you missed a complete day. So what's the difference? Why? So according to the general understanding of the Bahag, you shouldn't bother counting at all. Because if it's one big mitzvah, and you know you're going to miss a day, then it's meaningless to count, and certainly don't make any brachas. There will be bracha levatolas. However, according to the Rav's understanding of the Bahag, you count. Why shouldn't you count? I get what? It's 49 separate mitzvahs, so I'll get 17 days of mitzvahs, 28 days of whatever day it is, I'll get those days. The reason why I'm not counting isn't because there's no longer, it's not a separate mitzvahs, I messed up the count. So in fact, that's why he explains, there's halacha, and there's a note of Yehuda like this as well. Let's say someone is an onain. An onain is the time period between the death and the burial. Of course, I point out, we're not talking about the person who's dead. He doesn't have to worry. Meisim chashim in mitzvahs. It's the relatives I'm talking about, the people who are obligated in the burial, so they have the din of aninas. The din min Torah has to do with karbanos and meiser, but for our purposes, it's actually called aninas, but really, as Rav Soloveitchik points out, it's the beginning of the third parak in brachas. It's misha meisa mutu lefanav. It's patam and so the shulchan. So it's called hilchas aninas in the Shulchan Aruch because he said they didn't want to write hilchas meisa mutu. It was too long for the heading. But strictly speaking, those laws have nothing to do with aninas. It's a special din d'Rabbanan that you're exempt from mitzvahs while you're an onain. In fact, that's a famous machlokes, Rashi and Tosas. Why is an onain exempt? What's pshat onain pater min mitzvahs? So Rashi learns onain pater, he's exempt. But if he wants to, if he could rise, transcend the situation, then he's allowed to do it. And Tosas writes, he quotes the Yerushalmi, it's usher to do mitzvahs. Because kavod hameis, like we have a concept of a low-legal rush. That you don't walk out which is in the cemetery, which is sitzes out, you don't open the sefer and learn in front of the mace. It's kind of like, I could learn, you can, I could do mitzvahs, you can. So, well, in the rush, I'll cover that mace, we don't do it. We paskin like Tosfos, it's usher for an onain to do mitzvahs. In fact, there's an interesting discussion today, halacha l'maisa, today where we give everything over to the Chevra Kadisha. So that may be the exempt. What's the reason for the exemption? Is because I'm supposed to be osek b'kfura. I'm supposed to be making all the arrangements. But today we have the Chevra Kadisha. They take care of everything. Maybe one could argue that I should be chayav in it. There is a minority view among the poskim that hold that way. But the normative halacha is we assume even today, not only you're exempt, it's also to do mitzvahs. And the reason is because no matter what, you're always involved, whether you're thinking to write a eulogy, your mind's on the mace, halach l'maisa, we assume the exemption's still in hand. So it's about, and it's probably a different feeling, like actually eating food without making it. It's probably hard to do in the beginning. Hopefully you shouldn't be knowing too long. But some of the Chemed writes, you could put maybe listen to someone else's bracha or something, but you personally can't do mitzvahs. In fact, there's an interesting Minchas Chinuch who discusses what does an onain do who wants to have a sandwich? He wants to eat bread. So of course, what's the problem with bread? Because there's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan to wash your hands before you eat bread, and there's an Isser d'Rabbanan, there's a rabbinical prohibition to eat bread without washing your hands. So the Piskei Tshuva quotes Achronim that he should wash his hands without a bracha. What kind of halacha? Is that a compromise din? So you just wash your hands without a bracha? So the Minchas Chinuch, others explain, no, that's the halacha. In other words, we have a rule, the Gemara tells us in Psachim Daf Zayin, that we make a bracha before we do a mitzvah. That's the general principle, over l'asiyasan, that before we do mitzvah, we make a bracha. With a couple exceptions to the rule. The famous exception is a ger, obviously a convert. He can't make a bracha before he or she becomes Jewish, so you make the bracha afterwards because it's gavra lo chazi. But it's a general rule. Al natil shatayim. There are exceptions, but the rule is we make the bracha over l'asiyasa. So the halacha is you only make a bracha. Chazal only instituted a bracha when you're in the performance of a mitzvah. But if you're doing something just to avoid an aveira, so you don't make a bracha. If I'm doing something to avoid a prohibition, so for instance, the mitzvah d'Rabbanan of me having to wash my hands before I eat bread, I'm patur from. In fact, I'm also I can't do it. However, even though an onin is patur min mitzvahs, but he can't do averas. You still can't go to McDonald's and have a sandwich. You still have the yisurim. You're just exempt from the positive mitzvahs. So therefore, out the yisur d'Rabbanan, I can't eat bread without washing my hands. So why am I washing my hands? I'm only washing my hands to avoid the yisur d'Rabbanan. But I'm not washing my hands for the else the mitzvahs aseh, the mitzvah d'Rabbanan. So therefore the klal is, anytime I do a mitzvah, anytime I do something to avoid a transgression and not to do a mitzvah, so therefore I don't make a bracha. Like at some point now, you do something, let's say makeh, there's a discussion if there's a bracha or not, but those cheaters who say there's no bracha, again, you're doing something to avoid a sakana in terms of shmartem me'od nafsho sechem. So, in fact, the Minchas Chinuch has the same yisod as well by sukkahs. Let's say you're an onein on sukkahs. Let's say chol hamoed. You know, obviously there's no aninus on Yantif, because since you can't be, even though it's not true, there's no aninus on Shabbos for sure, because you don't osek b'kfura on Shabbos. Bizman HaGemara, you could do Yontiv Rishon, they bury al yedei akum, and Yontiv Sheni, I feel al yedei yisur. In fact, there are some Hasidim today, I think the Minig Breuers, I know in Washington Heights, and there I know the Satmark, I know I was in New York a couple years ago on Pesach, there was a terrible fire, and the wife of one of the rabbis, and they did Yontiv Sheni, because al pi halacha, that's the halacha, it's clear, Yontiv Sheni, Chayev and Kvura. We rely on Ramosha as a tshuva that we look at the big picture. There'll be too many people who can end up, for those who are chayiv in the kfur are allowed to go, but those who aren't involved can't do it. So what's going to happen is it's going to be gorim a lot of chilul yantiv. So Ramosha says better let's not get involved in it. So it makes sense that among the Hasidim or the Breuers, where you have a small knit community, in theory you have more control over your clients. So therefore, it's more control. But to have, say, in general, to have a rule, it's going to be, we see how it looks even with, without saying it's mutter. But I'm saying, so the halacha is, so there's no aninus, we assume on Yantav either, because we're not osek b'kfur, even though Eker Adin you can be, but we're not. But on Chol Hamoed, so you have to do the burial. So let's say during that time period, before the burial, so a person's an onein. So, and it's sukkahs. And you're eating something that's chayiv to eat in the sukkah, a piece of bread, a mazonas. So again, so what is he, does he eat in the sukkah or not? Because on one hand, it's also for him to do mitzvahs. So that's what the Minchas Chinuch raises, a question among the Achronim is, what is the nature of the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah? Is it just the mitzvah's aseh to eat in the sukkah? Or no, in addition to being a mitzvah's aseh to eat in the sukkah, there's an aveira to eat chutz l'sukkah. So my nafkamina is an onin. If there's only a mitzvah to eat in the sukkah, so he can't eat in the sukkah, he has to eat in the house. But if there's an isser to eat chutz l'sukkah, so he eats in the sukkah without a bracha. Again, the same thing. You're eating in the sukkah, and else the mitzvah, it's asur. The only reason I'm eating in the sukkah to avoid the prohibitions, that's the general klal. So that's what they point out by an onin. So the question, let's say you're an onin during Sfiras Omer. You're an onin for, let's assume a case you're going to miss a complete day. So what should you do? So that's it. You're going to not count, and then it's all over. So that's what there's a tshuva of the Nod of Yehuda, but it works in very well with the Rav, and the Rav says it as well. Is no, you know what he says the onin should do?
Count without a bracha.
Count without a bracha. What do you mean? What's this comment? Count without a bracha. What does that do? So he says like this is, why are you counting? In other words, see, let me just go back and explain the Bahaga again. Also, see, the Rav has another chiddush, and so the basic understanding of the Bahaga is one big mitzvah. That's why if you miss 20 for a complete day, that's it. But the Rav's question was, what's this halacha that we have, that if you forget at night, you count during the day, but without a bracha? If you're counting, why not with a bracha? What's this counting in the day without a bracha? Don't count at all, or count with the bracha. What? Yes, again, we assume it's a suffix, but the Rav says no. The Bahag, there's no suffix. The Bahag holds there's no mitzvah during the day. There is no mitzvah during the day. You know what that sheet is about counting during the day? You don't get the mitzvah that day. I'm only counting during the day so I can continue counting the next day. So let's say I missed day 3. So I count day 3 during the day, so that just enables me now when it comes to day 4, now I can make a bracha because so I'm not counting Torah's mitzvah, but I'm counting, and that's an onin. An onin should count without a bracha. He can't do a mitzvah. He's not getting any mitzvah. There is no mitzvah. Again, it's a machlokas rishonim, but the way the Rav's understanding that even the Bahag holds there's no mitzvah at all during the day. And in fact, and that's why it's better. I don't know if the Noda Yehuda writes this, but it makes sense anyway. If you're an onin and you're counting, I mean, it's very logical to count during the day and not the night to show. At least it's clear I'm counting during the day to show I'm not really doing the mitzvah. Unless you want to argue, count the night without a bracha, maybe that will show. But counting during the day, so at least there are those opinions who say there is no mitzvah at all during the day. So that's what the Rav explains. That's the same sort of an onin. Like to know the biyud, you count during the day, not that you're getting the mitzvah, but enables you to continue the count. In fact, there's another famous question, which is a whole shir on as well, and it's actually pretty common. Anyone who's born between Pesach and Shavuos has this question. So a katan shehigdio, someone who becomes a bar mitzvah, or for that matter, we didn't discuss women, but bas mitzvah as well, perhaps, during this time period. So what should they do? So let's say you become. So there's whole different ways to learn the Sha'ala. Obviously, this question is assuming that it's, in other words, if you assume it's a problem, you're assuming it's one big mitzvah, to mimus, and therefore you can't make it up. If you hold it's 49 separate mitzvahs, it'll be less of an issue. But along these lines, the Rav says the same line. He says, so we assume, again, it's a discussion, Minhag Ashkenaz, Sfard. Minhag Ashkenaz is as long as the katan was counting, he could continue counting with a bracha. So the Rav says along the same, why is the katan counting? I mean, it's not he doesn't get the mitzvah because it's only out tzrinach. Again, whether we assume today it's the rise of the Rabbanan, but he's chayiv once he becomes 13, he becomes chayiv in the mitzvah of Sfira, whether it's a mitzvah of the Rabbanan. Up to now he's counting out tzrinach, so he hasn't really been doing it. So how can he continue counting? What about tamimis? That's what the Rav explains along these lines. The katan is only counting, he's not really getting a mitzvah, but he's counting, so when he turns 13 on day 12, whatever day is, he can continue counting with the bracha. So that's the whole yisod of the Rav, and not just the Rav of the Soloveitchiks, that in the Bahag. So again, so halacha is in Shulchan Aruch. It seems like a simple halacha until you try to understand it. But the simple halacha, everyone, every kid knows off the street. If I forget to count tonight, I count tomorrow without a bracha. And if I miss a complete day, so I continue counting but without a bracha. So again, so it seems to be too compromised. And most, if you ask someone, they probably wouldn't know this, but if they would, the simple explanation would be it's a machlokas rishonim whether I could count during the day at all. Safek brachas lahakel, and I count without a bracha. And if I miss a complete day, the Bahag saying it's one big mitzvah, l'choshesh v'shitas ha-Bahag, even though it's only opinion, it's a minority view, and it's not usually brought that with halacha. Nevertheless, the Shulchan Aruch seems to be choshesh v'shitas ha-Bahag, and therefore, you miss a complete day, no more bracha, count without a bracha. That would be the simple way. But the Rav totally has a totally different shot, which answers up many more questions. Once you're counting during the day, so why not count with the bracha? So really he says that's not the pshat in the Bahag. Every day he says independent mitzvah. Everyone agrees to it. There is no opinion that says that it's one big mitzvah. Every day is an independent mitzvah. It's another din of ritzifas. In order to be a definition of a sfira, I need continuity. And that's why an onin has to count, Torah's count, no mitzvah. A katan count, it's all unable. And same thing, someone who is, let's say, whether you're palliative or whether you have a surgery, so according to the simple pshat, you shouldn't even begin counting. Why should you get involved in safek brachas? According to the Rav, of course you count until you can't count, because each day is a separate mitzvah. In fact, what should really be tested is what about day 49? Let's say you forgot to count, whatever, you didn't count the night, and now that's it. there's no more, even though the Torah does say it's Tisberu Chamishim Yom, that gets into Pashas when not counting. In other words, there is no, if you open up your siddur, you're not going to, people have different pshatim what it means the 50th day, so therefore, in that case, so what do I do then? So if it's for the continuity, so what continuity? I'm finished. So, according to the Rav, maybe there's no point. You're not getting a mitzvah anyway. So, and then, so that's what Rav Shlomo Zalman discusses. He leaves it at Sarach Ian, but he seems to be more concerned with bracha v'vatola as Mafreya, which isn't so simple. It is, but if I'm doing the mitzvah now, the fact that I don't finish it doesn't necessarily make it a bracha v'vatola. But I think the minig is, you might as well, it can't hurt you. You might as well count day 49 without a bracha. But that's how, you can always count without a bracha, so therefore there's no harm. So we never have to be tested on that. But that's a major discussion, how you interpret the Bahag with tremendous nafkaminas, lahalacha. In fact, this tests our basic understanding. I said, and this is what everyone's taught, and they ask probably, most rabbis, they're going to tell you, I'm not saying that wrong either, what they'll tell you is, if you go to them and say, I missed a complete day yesterday, they'll tell you to continue counting without a bracha. And in fact, don't blame them, open up the Shulchan Aruch, that's what the Mechaber writes. So, Rav Soloveitchik and others want to say it's not so simple, and based on the way they're learning this Bahag. Because really, why don't? So the question is, what's the reason why the alaminig is, why is the Shulchan Aruch saying not to continue counting with the bracha? So you have everyone saying it's 49 separate mitzvahs except the Bahag, so it must be, for whatever reason, the Mechaber is concerned about the opinion of Bahag, and he says, what's the big deal? He's still getting the mitzvah by counting, this don't make a bracha. And I'm assuming, the Mechaber is assuming, that listen to your friend's bracha, what's the big deal? Certainly if you're in shul, but it's not a big tircha. Listen to someone else's bracha, and you don't have to get yourself involved in a suffix bracha. And really, that's the Mechaber l'shitason. That's of Yosef Kari's view in general, because it's a major machlokas rishonim. What aveira is it, a daraisa drabanan to make a bracha l'vatola, to say God's name in vain? So the Rambam writes it's daraisa. Tosas holds it's Rabbanan. So the Mechaber, who usually works with the Rambam, so in general, as we see, it's for women as well, a mitzvah tasesha, we'll get into it, but the Mechaber in general is very strict on Safek Brachot, because he holds, you deal with a daraisa. So therefore he always says, better not to make the bracha. So that's a simple understanding of the Mechaber. So, Safek Brachot, why get involved in a potential Issa daraisa? And therefore you can listen to someone else. And that might be true. So, however, the Rav Soloveitchik, and I saw in others, the Shara Mitzurim Bahalacha, others write that really Me'ikr Hadin, we paskin, every day is a separate mitzvah. The Mechaber writes, you can't continue. That's just not even a Me'ikr, it's not Me'ikr, it's a Chumrah, a Hiddur, because the Mechaber holds the sheet about the Rambam. But he's just saying, L'choshesh Bahag's not usually brought down L'halacha. Since when are we concerned? We have everyone saying one way and one person in the other. Why should we be concerned? So, again, this is part of the issue. Some might say it's a real doubt. If it's a real doubt, then Safek Brachos L'hakol. Rav Soloveitchik and others claim, no, we really paskin. According to him, it's not a question. He holds the Bahag, says every day is a mitzvah. Anyways, according to the Rav, there is no other opinion. Everyone agrees every day is a separate mitzvah. So really, Mikra Adin, you miss 6 days. You wake up now, you want to count Sfira, make a bracha. That's what Rov Rishonim, according to him, all Rishonim say, and there's no reason not to. However, I said the Shulchan Aruch has that pshat because of Choshesh for Choshesh as a Bahag, or the Mechaber in general. So the Rav likes to say, you got to know your Baal Abatim. You have to know who you're talking to, because what do most people assume when they hear, you know what? You could count but no bracha. Cool explanation, I blew my mitzvah, it's over, I'm wasting my time now. And what happens to many Baal, if you're a Ben Torah, you understand the concept, but most Baal Batim don't, no bracha, okay, forget about it, they stop counting. So according to everyone, you have a mitzvah to count. The only thing the Mechaber says is not to make a bracha. Everyone agrees that every day's in them, you got to count. So like the Rav likes comparing it to the Gemara by Shmini Atzeres. The famous Gemara in Sukkah, what do you do in Chutz La'aretz on Shmini Atzeres? The Gemara itself gives us the issue, gives us three opinions. So, or it goes both opinions. The Gemara says, we'll compromise. Yasve Yasvinan Bruche Lo Bevarchinan. Sit in the Sukkah, but don't make a bracha. So the Rav says, what could happen? You tell Baal Batim, don't sit in, don't make a bracha. Oh, you don't really have to sit in the Sukkah, it's the 8th day, and people move inside. So you see, when you tell, in other words, to them, bracha really, 99% isn't an obstacle in performing any mitzvah. Very rarely, the brachas are only d'Rabbanan, and they're very rarely li'kuva. So, but today, people put it, which is a good thing, they give chashivas to brachas, which we should, but they don't understand that it's really external to the mitzvah. Do you tell someone not to make a bracha, the code word is, okay, I blew it, I'll catch it next year. So he said you have to know who you're talking to. If you know by telling someone they're not going to count anymore, it's a no-brainer. Tell them to count with the bracha. Because he holds someone you're allowed to count with the bracha. But if it's easy to listen to someone else, the Shulchan Aruch says not to, so I'm not going to l'chatchila tell people to do it. But he holds there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, the Shar B'Shem Halacha writes even l'chatchila to make a bracha. But the Rav doesn't go that far, but he says, the Yikar Adin, there's nothing to talk about. You have to make a bracha, and therefore he tells Baal Batim, depending who is, don't worry about it, keep on going. And that makes it very logical, because everyone agrees you have to count. The only issue is the bracha, and at best you have a potential shita sabah. So again, as I explained, we understand the machaber, that he's going to chumrah, but the Ashkenaz, we don't follow that. We have women do make brachas on mitzvahs haseisha zman. We don't necessarily, we seem to go with Tosaf's shita. We're only dealing with the D'Rabbanan anyway, and since Me'ikar Adin, we pass in like the other Rishonim, so therefore, so again, so if someone asks, depending who it is, I'm going to tell them always I go with the standard psak. But if there is someone I think who he's going to understand me not to do it, then I don't have a problem telling them to even continue counting with the bracha, because Me'ikar Adin, that's the way we probably pass. And the machaber is machber and brachas in general. It's a local hilchos brachas issue with the machaber. Not so much as in Sfiras Omer. He's always very strict, and rightfully so. If you think you're involved in this as the Raisa, you should be strict. But that's how the Rav explained it. So that's why, based on the Bahag, we have another nafkamina. Really, you can continue counting, and that's why anyway we have halacha anyway. Let's say you're not sure if you counted. Many times, people come to me. I don't remember if I counted last night. And of course, it's the next day already. It's too late, so I tell them, don't worry. Maybe if they told me they think, I'd still tell them that. I said, don't worry, keep on counting with the bracha. It's okay. So why? But you don't have to come on to the Rav. The classical poskim say it. The poskim really understand this machloket, but they don't. But anytime they can, that's over many times a very mako by sphere, because they really understand it's only at best it's a local shitas of Bahag. So in other words, the post can bring that, it's what they call a svek sveka, a double doubt. One doubt is maybe I counted last night, maybe I didn't count. And even if I didn't count, who says that who says that is like the Bahag or their understanding? Every night's a new mitzvah, so it doesn't make a difference. So therefore, I said, others say even l'chatchila, I'm not going that far, but the svek sveka, even the machaber would agree that because any type of sniff we look for, we could be lenient because they throw these kulas out all the time. Because really, Me'ikar Adin, the Rav's probably right. We don't go with the Bahag, and we assume every day is a separate mitzvah.
Would you get credit for mitzvah? I mean, for example, tefillin, do you not get credit for the mitzvah even if you don't say it? If you can't, for some reason you can't say the bracha.
No,
say you
the bracha plays no role in the mitzvah. In other words, someone say no. In other words, Chazal instituted the bracha as a hechsher, as a hachana. But basically, there's a machlokas rishonim. Let's say I did the mitzvah. As I point out, you make a bracha before you did the mitzvah. What happens? I finished the mitzvah. Now what? So there's or zaru. The machlokas is in hilchas shchita. a machlokas Rambam and Or Zarua. I think the Or Zarua, maybe it might be mixed up, but I think the Or Zarua says you can make a bracha even after the mitzvah, and the Rambam says no. Either way, it's a machlokas. We shouldn't be getting the names wrong, but it's a machlokas. So what's the issue? Whether you make a bracha after? So if you hold it's a hachana, it's a preparation. The mitzvah is over. What am I preparing for? Go home. So there's no need to make. If you hold, it's not just a hachana, but it's a hiddur that do the mitzvah with the bracha. So then there's room to discuss. You can make a bracha afterwards. But so we assume it depends on the mitzvah. As a general, we paskin, you don't make a bracha after the mitzvah is over. But however, there are exceptions if it's what they call a mitzvah tamidis or a continuous mitzvah, i.e. let's say Chanukah. You didn't make the bracha before, but let's say it was in the first half an hour and your candle's still going. So again, so it's still there, or let's say talis, I'm still wearing it. So you move it around. That's why when you start davening early, sometimes they tell you to wait. So if you're still involved in, so again, so we're lenient, and then we go a couple of sniff and we'll make over. But as a general rule, we don't make a bracha after the mitzvah. But there's no, you fulfill your mitzvah, the mitzvah in Torah of tefillin if you never made a bracha in your life. Same thing, with all mitzvahs, it's totally independent, just a way of preparing. In fact, reminds me of a Nod of Yehuda that's very popular by Sfiras Omer, or very unpopular depending on which side of the coin you are. We know for some reason it's in the Siddur, so everyone says it. Hasidim say it all the time, but in the Siddurim, what do we say before Sfiras Omer? There's a whole, which sounds great. I'm preparing myself for the mitzvah. Sfiras Omer, starting quotes the psukim. And if you look at many Haggadahs, because even the Haggadahs, they come from originally from Hasidic Haggadahs, so in many of the things on Pesach night, there are some things that Pesach night might be different, but there's a lot of Hinei Mukhon. But if you open up a Hasidic Siddur, I know I sit next to a Lubavitch guy in Shul, he says Hinei Mukhon all the time, or even when he begins his day, V'haftarecha kamocha, they're always saying it. I'm being descriptive here. I'll leave you to your own opinions on that. But that's what they do. They do hitting. So by Sfiras Omer, for some reason, it's in the Siddur. People Ashkenaz non-Hasidim who normally do not say it because it's in the Siddur, so they say it by Sfiras Omer. So somebody has to know the Yehuda, not specifically about here. In general, he had a question about the text of the Hinei Mukhon. I'm not sure if it's Sfiras Omer or not, but just in general. Because in many times there's a contradiction between halacha and Kabbalah. So straight out we go with halacha. And Hasidim a lot of times go with Kabbalah. A classical case is tefillin on Chol Hamoed. So today many people, it's popular not to wear tefillin. Well, maybe all the time. It's popular definitely during Chol Hamoed anyway, not to wear tefillin. But so what if you go by the straight halacha, if you look at again, this is the whole discussion on this anyway, because there are many people today, the briskers say not to wear tefillin, the grot, it's not just Hasidim, but Hasidim don't, the many Bali Tshuva, so they don't have any minute, they don't, you have the gra and you have the Soloveitchik, so there are other halachic, reasons, but if you go, putting that aside, if you go by the straight halacha, it seems, in fact, the Beis Yosef writes, even the Sfardim used to wear tefillin, until they found later on in the writings of the Arizal, I believe of the Zohar, maybe it was the Zohar, that it's also to wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed because tefillin, Chol Hamoed is the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it has some strong words. Like Chayav Mitzvah, if anyone, so therefore historically it's interesting, one day they woke up and stopped wearing tefillin, exactly how it worked, I don't know. But anyway, so the Hasidim, many people don't wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, but the straight psak of the Ramah is to wear tefillin. So again, that's an example where halacha and let's say Kabbalah are conflict. Again, the Gra and the Salvationists they think they have halachic grounds for doing it. But let's say among the Hasidim, the Zohar says one thing, the halacha says another. Who do you go with? That's part of the tension. So either way, to the Nod of Yehuda points out, what do we need that? We should be doing Hinei Mukhon Zuman because it's against what Chazal just gave us the brachas. In fact, it's interesting, I heard, even if it's not true, I liked it anyway, is that the Nod of Yehuda's Yortzeit, I think it's somewhere during Sfirat, sometime right before Lag BaOmer. I think we could check, but I think we'll see if it's true or not, because if he didn't die during this time period, maybe the whole thing's not true. But they claim, I saw it brought down somewhere, that he died during this time period. So I heard there was a minig in Brooklyn in one of the Hasidic yeshivas or shuls. On the night of the Nodavid's Yortzeit, they don't say Hine Muchan Lazuma. In order to cover to the Nodav Yehuda, they leave out Hine Muchan Lazuma. Whether it's true or not, it's interesting. But remind me by Tefillin on Chol Hamoed, there's an interesting minig of the Satmar. I always like this minig. That the minig is among Satmar that single men wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, and married men don't. What's the basis for that? So they say because when they say, when you're single, you're not involved in Kabbalah. You got to go with the straight halacha. So they wear tefillin. Once you get married, you start learning Kabbalah. So therefore the minig. But I like the concept. Why wear tefillin? I'm a stone to Ashkenaz. So, but in terms of, but we got how Kabbalah. It's a general question. When Kabbalah and halacha collide with, So again, if it's not black and white in halacha, then there's room to take in Kabbalah. In fact, that's what many say you do. If it's not clear, so some might say the psak isn't clear by tefillin and Chol Hamoed, and then they come. So that's already what to discuss. If it's not clear how we paskin, so then there's nothing wrong with using a Kabbalah source to help you decide. But if it's clear what it says in halacha, so then that gets into how Hasidish you are. What you go with the Kabbalah or the halacha. So the Nodav Yehuda was against Hine Muchan Lazuma completely. So there's a famous Maisa. So the Nodav Yehuda has this classic Tshuva Sfarim. So I guess they were very popular even then, and they ran out. And the grandson of the Nodav Yehuda, he was going to republish the Tshuvas. He was going to republish them, and so what happened was, I think he went to the Divrei Chaim, the Samzarav, and he said, you know what? This is many years later when you didn't have the clash so much between the Litvish and the Hasidic. He says, you know what? We get along today. It's not like my grandfather's days where there were big fights between the Hasidim. I want to make peace and stuff. You know what? My father has some strong words in one of his tshuvas. I'll tell you what he writes in one of the tshuvas. He says, he quotes, the pasuk says, God's ways are straight. Yisharim darchei Hashem. So it says, with tzaddikim yalchu bam, the righteous follow them. But yikashru bam, those who the sinners stumble over them. So those of you that took out the stumblers and put in chasidim, he said, the chasidim yikashru bam, the chasidim, they stumble over things. So he said, you know what? I know there were my grandfather had strong words. You know what? Maybe let me, in the new print, if you want, I'll take out Hasidim and put back Poshin. So the Divrei Chaim says, Chas v'shalom. Your grandfather was a great man. He took Poshim and he turned them into Hasidim. You want to take Hasidim and turn them into Poshim? So I think they left the original text. Which reminds me, once I say this joke, I like to say the other side. Also another famous line between the Hasidim. Another joke I like is Rav Heinemann, who was Rav in Baltimore, Star K. So he worked in Lakewood under Rav Aaron Cutler. So he was learning in Lakewood for many years, and that's where he learned. So one Shabbos, one Motzei Shabbos, the Satmar Rebbe came to town. Give a tish, not in the Lakewood Yeshiva, but somewhere in one of the Hasidic shuls, I guess, around town. So he figured Saturday, Motzei Shabbos, it's not a real seder. Let me go over and let me go and hear the Satmar Rebbe, which was, by the way, was a big goat anyway. So he goes to the tish, and and then he comes back. So Rav Aaron, he comes back and learns, comes back to the Beis HaMedrash. Rav Aaron Cutler sees him, he calls him, where you been? How come you're not learning tonight? He said, the Satmar Rebbe came into town and he had a tish, so I went by. So tell me what happened. He said, yeah, so I went, I guess this is how Rebbe spoke. I guess they give out shirayim and the leftovers from the Rebbe. So I guess they were giving out fish and they were passing it around. So it got to me, it looked disgusting to me. I'm a litvak anyway, and I just sent it going, and the Sama Rabbi saw me, and he said, he says, you'll never be a chassid. So the Rabbi Kala said, you should be very happy. You got a bracha from a tzaddik. You'll never be a chassid. Either way, so whichever. So that's what they point out. That was the no Yehuda. So he was very against the. So I'm not saying. For some reason, the minhag is that people say it more. I don't know if it's because that's just the result of this people, being in the siddur. Or maybe you could find Al Pi Kabbalah. There's more in Svira. They have the different in all the Kabbalistic books to have each day is a new counting. A count to Kabbalah the Torah. So maybe for nothing's coincidental. For whatever reason, the minhag, even those who don't normally say. So again, I'm not telling you to stop your minhag, but whatever. There probably was a reason, but in the siddur, but normally, the minhag is we don't normally do a hinei muchon l'zuman, but that's what that was a discussion there, and that was the Noda Yehuda interesting discussion, with the Chayasidim and and the grandson. Any questions?
Did I hear you say before that technically, like if you don't make a bracha or wherever you're supposed to make a bracha, if you don't, you still get the mitzvah? Mm-hmm. Because, for instance, that how many times have I read? I don't remember where the source is. That, for instance, if you're about to eat something or drink something, that you're going to eat an apple and you don't make a bracha over it, it's as if you're stealing it spiritually. You're not recognizing it as a creator. So if that is true, then how are you getting a mitzvah?
100%. I agree. It's a totally different thing. There's three types of brachas I have to clarify. In other words, what I was talking about is birkas ha-mitzvah. The bracha you make before a mitzvah. So tefillin, tzitzits, or
eating an apple is not a mitzvah.
I'm saying the birkas hanenin is what you're referring to. Oh. The Gemara says in brachas in Ketzah Mevarchim, kol hanena below bracha yukilumo, and it's like stealing. It says Rasha ba'aretz umloa. There's a contradiction. One hand it says everything belongs to God, but then it says Shabbai Shamayim Hashem. So the Gemara says Lo kasha kan kodem bracha kan liacha bracha. So right, so that's 100% true. Which is an interesting discussion about also, but not for now, about what is the nature of a bracha rishona. Is it a mitzvah or is it out to prevent an isra? But 100%, that's talking about achilas rishus. That's the birkas hanenin. So that's just, you're right, that's, we don't pass in this way, but there's a Rosh Shlomo Kluger that writes, let's say a matzah. If you eat the matzah without making the bracha, moti lachem in haaretz, it's a mitzvah abba ba'aveira, which we don't assume that, because we assume the bracha is separate. But the only place where they discuss on special mitzvahs, let's say, some claim it by Hanukkah, that the whole purpose is for Sumei Nisa. So how do you show this light is done for? So then the bracha plays a key role. Then again, we don't halach l'maisa you yotzi near Hanukkah without it. But there are certain mitzvahs where we do attach a little more significance to the bracha because of the nature. But the bottom line is you fulfill, you get the mitzvah without the bracha. See some assume the reason why we say the suffix brachos lahakel is because there's a Rav Yosef angle like this, again, which we don't pass like, but the same concept, that we say suffix brachos lahakel is because the bracha is d'Rabbanan and the mitzvah is d'Oraisa. So according to him, but if it's a suffix bracha on a d'Oraisa, so we do pass on birkas hamazon, again, assuming yechayev in d'Oraisa. So obviously birkas hamazon, the mitzvah is the bracha. So that's obviously if you don't bench, you don't get the mitzvah benching. But as a general rule, the bracha is more an enhancer or a preparation. It's not an obstacle. Again, no one's saying that to me. You can't aim a valid. You can't just I'm not making a bracha, and you can't do that. But I'm talking post facto. If you did the bracha without the mitzvah, it's a go.
Okay, but so what happens? Let's say chas v'sholom, the person's comes out of laryngitis and they have to light the Hanukkah candles, and they're living alone. They can't.
Yeah. So the best. No, so the best thing to do is is trying to get someone else, but obviously you live alone, so you lie without a bracha. You're an honest. You're under duress, you don't have a choice. But I'm saying is even if a person did that who could speak, you'd still be yotzei there. Here, this person's totally lechatchila. He can't talk, so you like to. But I'm saying even if someone could talk and didn't, I'm not recommending it.
Right, but that's because he didn't want
he got punished for not doing a mitzvah d'rabbanan of breaking a bracha. But I'm saying in terms of the mitzvah of Hanukkah, you can't take it away from him.
Right, but I mean, if we usually used to say a minute ago, if the person says, you know what, I just don't feel like making a bracha, how's the shalom? I'm just gonna but I don't feel like making a bracha. That you don't get the mitzvah, or you still.
No, you still get the mitzvah, but obviously it's looked down upon. You nullified the takanas chazal of making a bracha. In other words, it's looked down at the terrible thing you're doing.
Right.
But bottom line, I can't take the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah you did.